She's April.
And she's Molly.
And we are
the Book Besties.
It's one of the reasons that I named the book, Please Don't Say You're Sorry. Because when you change how you think you're defined, when somebody says, "Oh, I'm so sorry," you immediately are like, victim. Wait, did something happen to me that you should feel sorry for? And then you start to feel sorry for yourself, and then you're trying to fill this void.
Hi. Hello. Hi, everybody. It's Bestie April here. And today I am here with Nicole Sodoma, who is an attorney and an author. Just going to give a quick bio on you, if that's okay, Nicole, and then we'll get into your book. All right. So you started Sodoma Law in 2008, correct?
Yes, we are in our 15th year, and I'm in my 23rd year of practicing law.
Wow, that's incredible. You have 28 attorneys and 60 staff. That's amazing. And Please Don't Say You're Sorry which is your first book, was published in 2022. And I love this from your website, so I'm going to quote this. She is recognized for her commitment to my clients in entrepreneurship, vision, and community involvement. So I love that because I'm a librarian and that is my jam. Community involvement, entrepreneurship. That's my husband's thing. It's not my thing. Vision. Love it. Love it. So I want to give everybody a little background as to why we're doing this shorter episode today. And it's just me and Nicole and not Molly. So we are going to be at the Annapolis Book Festival on April 29th. And we're interviewing authors there. We've been talking about it on social media. We've been talking about it in our episodes. However, we did not have enough time to get Nicole into our schedule because we are crunched for time that day. And the only time that we could do it was when you were in your session. So that was a big time bummer. So instead, we're doing this short little episode now to get to chat with you about your book. And full disclosure to our listeners, I have not actually had a chance to read this one yet because we've been reading like crazy, prepping. And so I haven't read this one yet. But I wanted you to tell us a little bit about your book. Please Don't Say You're Sorry. And we'll talk more about the Annapolis Book Festival and the Key Schools. So can you tell us about your book, Nicole?
So the subtitle of Please Don't Say You're Sorry is an empowering perspective on marriage, separation, and divorce from a marriage-loving divorce attorney.
I love that.
Because I'm a marriage-loving divorce attorney.
Okay.
What I discovered was after 20 years of practicing law, spending almost every one of those years in the area of family law, opening a law firm. We've got 5 locations. I manage the practice. And then I got divorced. And I was the least likely person that anybody ever thought would ever get divorced. I mean, think about all the things I've learned about marriage and divorce and all these things. And I realized that there were all of these things that my clients weren't telling me and things that I wasn't telling my clients or that lawyers don't tell their clients. And so what started out as a how to keep your marriage together, the top 30 things to do, which I actually thought would be a fun bathroom book before we all took Instagram to the bathroom with us.
Yeah, I mean, very true.
Was that I do like the top 30 things not to do if you want your marriage to stay together. And I met my co-author, Jocelyn Dovey, and she said, wow, there's so many things we need to be talking about. There's so many stories. So my perspective is that of my normal growing up was divorce. I'm
Same.
20, right? So 20, and that's not unusual, right? And how we grow up is unique to us, and what we create is our normal. And so that perspective, the blended family perspective. Then I'm a divorce lawyer for 20 something years, and then I got divorced. And wow, I felt like there were so many things that we could be doing better as humans, as parents, as spouses, as partners. And so the book is divided into 3 parts. The first part is about marriage. And there, in addition to stories, there are also anecdotes and resources and programs. You know, we don't want to wait until we're getting divorced to try to fix our marriage. That would be terrible idea.
Right.
So it's a lot harder than at least.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second section is about separating. And the third section is about divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of each section, there are going to be some tough questions for you to answer. I've learned that some groups in the Carolinas are using Please Don't Say You're Sorry to workshop among their leadership groups.
Oh, I love
And
that.
so, yes, I love that. It wasn't what I thought would happen.
Right.
And I think my goal really is to get the book in the hands of people who want their marriage to stay healthy and
Yeah.
happy, or who would give the book as to someone who is considering divorce or separation. The reality is that people don't always know when that's going to happen.
Right.
And so the other idea is that, we buy insurance, we always try to stay prepared for all
Mm-hmm.
things, but we aren't as prepared in our relationships.
Yeah.
And if we know anything is true, it takes two to say I do and only one to say I don't. You
Exactly.
don't have to be the one to agree to get divorced. Somebody could come home one day and say they don't want to be married to you anymore. And are you prepared for that?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
that's the spirit behind it.
I like that a lot. And so I'm in my 40s, and I've been married this is our 13th year, and I don't know a single couple that has been at this as long as we have that hasn't had a moment where they had to work through some tough stuff. And I think you're absolutely right. When you're at the end, it's a little late then to really backtrack. Like, you have to keep working at it all along. And I think that there are so many books about like what you do before you say I do, but there aren't those books that are like, hey, we're here, we've been at this a while, and we need to make sure we're keeping that fire going and keeping that spark. So that's really great. I love it. What formats is the book in? Hardback? Is it audiobook as well? Is there an ebook?
It is. I did my own Audible,
I love that.
which my favorite Audible that I'd ever listened to was Glennon Doyle when she did Untamed,
Okay.
and I listened to it in 2028, and I think that was right after it came out. And to hear her voice and the way that she
Mm-hmm.
used I listened to it differently than I read it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was convinced when they said I could do my own Audible, I was like, count me in.
I love that.
So I really enjoyed it. I said my side hustle, if I decide not to practice law, run law firms, write books, if I don't do anymore, like I'm going to be an Audible
I feel
narrator.
like
I
that's
loved
a
it.
dream. I feel like that's a dream. Yeah, we love audiobooks on Book Besties. Molly, who is my pod partner, is dyslexic. And so we talk a lot on this podcast about accessibility. And personally, I like that your book is also available as an audiobook, because not that you shouldn't speak with your spouse to let them know, like, hey, we need to work through these things, but like maybe you feel like you need to like dip your toes in first before you talk to your partner about it. So this could be a car ride listen as well.
Well, and they're great like talking points in there. I
Mhm.
mean, and like the book is gonna take you through some stories that existed for, what I've experienced, not only personally, as a kid, as a lawyer, as a parent, because I've
Mhm.
got three boys, as a partner and as an ex-partner, and I got remarried
Yeah.
like a crazy person. So, because I'm a marriage, love, and divorce attorney, so I'm now going through how to make blended family work,
Mhm.
and what a whole new experience
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
So I we together we have five
Mm.
children and an animal. We say we've got three dogs and two cats.
Mm.
So blending not only humans but
Right.
animals.
Yeah. I have
So lots
two
of
boys,
perspective.
so that boy life.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I have two boys. Yeah, they're really great. They keep me very busy, and they're 10 and 6, and my youngest is almost 7, and we're having difficulty finding people our age who have kids our age, because we
Right.
kind of got a late start.
So I say I got a little bit of a late start too, and I've got one that's about to start driving, and he's my oldest.
Hmm.
And it really is like there's also different the ages, and
Hmm.
now I will tell you that you guys have been married for 13 years,
Hmm.
so you're getting ready to pass what I think is the toughest part of staying married.
Mm.
So I did of our client base, and I represent men and women, and the
Hmm.
entire practice represents men and women in all of its locations. It's about 50-50. Isn't that interesting? I don't know why I think that's interesting, but
Well, I mean, there
um,
are attorneys that will only represent men or only represent women in divorce. So I think that's actually good that you will do either.
we definitely have the perspective from both
Hmm.
sides of partnerships. But my what I have researched so far tells me that years 11 to 13 are the tough years, and to bring in some celebrity divorces, if you notice, just pay attention to how long the celebrities who are getting divorced are in the headlines, how long they were married. It's really interesting. 11
Hmm.
to 13, there's some tough years.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about that because you always hear like the first year is the hardest. I feel like for us, our first very hard year was when we had our son
Oh,
because
yes.
now we're parenting somebody and we grew up very differently. I am the kid of divorce as well, and several times divorced. My mom has remarried and blended several times, and Tom's parents are still together and his grandparents are still together, and so uh, we just grew, and he grew up in a home that was raised in church and I did not, and we wanted to raise our kids in church, and like it was just a lot to deal with. He was also active duty, so like for us our first year was cake. Our first year as parents was hard. That was our first hard year, and at that point we were together for we had been married for 3 years. That was the 3 year mark. So
So I don't know who made up the 7-year itch. I probably should research that, but I don't see a lot of 7-year itch
hmm.
divorces. And I mean, we're talking about thousands of consults. I don't see a lot of that. I do. I agree that in my personal experience, that year 3,
Hmm.
year 5, that was tough, and
Hmm.
it does coincide with. I think if you're going to choose to have a family
Yeah,
or increase your responsibilities and all those
absolutely.
triggers. Now, I'm curious. So, do you feel, and I asked these questions about divorce, like, do you feel defined, or by how each of you were raised, or do you think that it has strengthened your perspectives? I feel like I've said that word a lot in
No,
the
yeah,
last, I don't know how long we've been on,
you're good.
but it's because it's so easy to do a little blame game
Hmm.
on how we were raised
Hmm.
and how that defines us. And then if you should ever, and I'm not talking about you and your husband, but
Right.
as you come across people who have experienced separation and divorce and how they may start to define themselves
Hmm.
by the results of their relationship,
Yeah.
um, it's a hard,
Yeah.
especially when you're in those initial stages of separation and divorce, there's a possibility that your friends change, and
Right.
or that friends feel like they have to pick a side. I mean,
Yeah.
not all divorces are contentious, but it's interesting to see
Right.
how our parents' divorce plays into the decisions we make
Yeah. I think
and our friends and family, right?
right. Yeah. I think that I define myself a lot by my childhood, mostly because it's a long story, but it's an overcoming story. So that is one of the ways I define myself. But I would say in my adult life, a great deal of how I define myself is as Tom's wife and my son's mom. And so I imagine that like if you are doing a dissolution of marriage, if you're getting divorced, if that is how you define yourself, like, are you aimless at that point? Like, who even are you? Because in my 40s, like, I feel like that is how I'm defined. I'm defined as a librarian. If I weren't a librarian, what would I be doing? It's the same thing with that. I think
It's
Tom's,
one of the
I'm sorry.
it's one of the reasons that I named the book "Please Don't Say You're Sorry."
Yeah.
Because when you change how you think you're defined,
Hmm.
when somebody says, "Oh, I'm so sorry,"
Yeah.
you immediately are like, "Victim.
Right.
Wait, did something happen to me that you should feel sorry for?" And then you start to feel sorry for yourself, and then you're trying to fill this void.
Yeah.
And it is you are able to overcome it, but only with the right resources and the
Right.
right attitude and support system and knowledge.
Right. Yeah,
So
I really love that because when I read the title, Please Don't Say You're Sorry, I thought, well, that is an interesting title for a book about divorce. But the idea that other people are putting you in that position of, oh, I'm so sorry that happened, when they don't really know. I'm not the expert. I know that you obviously have more experience with divorce, being that you are a divorce attorney. But to me, I don't ever think these things happen overnight. It's a buildup. It's a progression towards divorce. Nobody. You do have the people that come home and say, I'm not in love with you anymore. I don't love you anymore. But something started that. Somewhere this started. So
it doesn't happen overnight.
no, absolutely not.
You know, there's so many amazing therapists,
Mhm,
PhDs. Oh my gosh. And some would say it could be as simple as
mhm.
resentment building until there's a point where, and until there's a point where there's no going back,
Right.
contempt. Um, Stephen Stosny's got great work on this. I mean, there are so many people that there's so many people and resources that if you just communicate
Mhm.
about it, the sooner the better, so that you recognize when it's happening. You have an opportunity to save it, but it's going to take both people to do the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we get the question, or I get the question a lot, like, what is the reason that most people get divorced? Is it money, drugs, adultery? And people always think they know the answer, but it's usually, I don't know. I think people are surprised to find out what the real reasons are, because it's usually uh, a combination of all of those things. But how I usually start my consults with asking people how they met,
Mhm,
because I want to take them back
mhm,
to remembering what it was like. And then I usually ask them why they think they're here, and why does their spouse think they're here.
mhm.
So, I mean, understanding how we got here is just part of the process,
Yeah.
because it's not an easy process to go through. And it feels like a full-time job. And if you think you're leaving someone because you can't manage that relationship anymore, and you have children together,
Mhm,
guess what? They're not going to change. So you need to spend real time learning your own coping skills,
mhm.
figuring out what it is that makes you happy, being okay with that.
Right,
And that takes real work.
right. Yeah,
It takes real work.
100%. So this was your first book. So I'm curious, did you outline this? Did you kind of write off the cuff? How did this process work for you?
It took about a year.
Mhm,
It was very cathartic. um, I went through all my favorite lessons
mhm,
that I had learned. Some of my favorite experiences in the courtroom. Um, you know, I feel like with every single consult, every time I come in contact with a human who is going through the separation and divorce process, or going back for a modification, because sometimes, especially like when we think about life post 2008, when people were changing jobs
mhm.
because of what the market was doing, or
Right.
taking children out of private schools and putting them in public schools, or whatever it is, moving. It wasn't just people getting separated and divorced, that it was really just about educating them. So and telling them what it was like, let me give you the example. Let me tell you what it feels like, and how to prepare yourself for the moment that you're on the soccer field,
Yeah.
and your kids leave with another parent and you don't get to go.
Yeah.
So how are you managing that? You kept like, and it may be that your job was to keep yourself safe,
Right.
right? That you needed to create those boundaries. That person wasn't the one for you. But
Mm,
know what that looks like on the other side. Make smart decisions.
right.
And so a lot of the process of writing the book was thinking about those moments in a 20-year family law practice that not only was mine, I mean, between all of us here, we've got hundreds of years of experience. There are
Right.
28 lawyers and all of these clients that we've helped. And of course, as I said, my own experiences in divorce, and just thought, I got all of the stories out. And sometimes I'll tell you a story and I'll go, I don't know if that one made it in the book, but I have to tell you about this thing that happened. So that was really the process, was,
Hmm.
picking out those experiences that I was witness to, or that I navigated with another human, um, and asking somebody, teaching someone how to manage it, and
Yeah.
um, dispelling myths. Taking the things I hear in almost every consult and saying, I always get asked this question. Let me answer it for you right here. So, we all got to speak the same language.
Right.
Someone who is going through a separation and divorce. It is scary as hell to talk about it, but
Yes.
let's all be talking. Let's use the same words.
Right.
Our state laws may be different, but overall, the principles are the same. We are going to be talking about what happens when you're no longer married.
Right.
We're going to be talking about how you parent children with somebody that you may not get along with or like, but
Right.
how do you love your children more than you dislike that human?
Right.
We're going to be talking about assets and debts, and how things get divided, and how you support yourself and how your children are supported.
Hmm.
Like, those are the common themes. Now,
Right.
that's aside from talking about domestic violence and talking about all these other issues that come in. But, like, in large part, let's make sure we all have that same language and know
Right.
how to resolve it, how to manage our own selves, because that's the only thing we can control, and how to help our kids through it. Because depending on the age of your children, their coping skills are going to be different.
Right.
So, instead of, I mean, this is probably really anti-litigator in me. So, like, I'm looking out the window to make sure to see who's listening. But, like, you know, uh, your lawyers aren't going to say to you, I mean, usually your lawyers aren't going to say to you, like, let's not go ask for primary custody. This lawyer would probably say, we're going to do what's right for you and your children,
Hmm.
and probably in not that order. Like, we have to focus on rights for them. But in the
Right.
meantime, I want you to be teaching them coping skills,
Yeah.
because there's really not such thing as sole custody.
Hmm.
So if the other parent is a drinker or an abuser,
Hmm.
um, realistically, you're not cutting that child off from the other parent.
Right.
So teach that child coping skills in an age appropriate way,
Right.
so that they're safe, so that they understand boundaries. I mean, what a disservice we do. You don't want your lawyer on payroll for the rest of your life. That's
Right.
not the goal.
Right. Right.
So I know that's a really long answer to your question,
No,
but I
but
feel very passionate
right.
about the real life of relationships, and the things that either someone might go through, but for sure, someone who has been through it or will go through it. So
Yeah.
why are we not talking about it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, are you working on anything new? Any new book?
I am, right now, I'm not supposed to say that I think we're working this
We can
into
be
a work.
friends. We can
I
be
know we
friends.
need to be, like, we're going to be friends. So we're working it into a workbook. I'm starting a speaker circuit
Okay.
with, um, I'm starting a speaker circuit. Actually, the first one is in Charlotte, North Carolina,
Oh,
this week.
wow.
So I'm gonna be creating a workbook based on the things we're talking about, that will eventually, hopefully by June, be available on the site.
I love them.
And this, yeah, I mean, knowing that people are already using the book
Right.
at the end of the sections to workbook, so we're going to make that a little bit more robust. And the website is it's NicoleSodoma.com, is our book site.
And we'll put
Um,
a link below so you can
oh,
link
great.
directly to your website.
Thanks. And I love hearing questions, and what people are experiencing, and making sure they get pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's not always a lawyer.
Right.
A lawyer should be a season of your life, but setting you up for success after they're done, after their
Right.
job is done.
Right. Yeah. So just out of curiosity, pivot for me. I was wondering if you have a favorite book or a favorite author that you could share with our listeners.
I have so many.
That's my problem too.
So
I'm
I'm
like,
a big Jodi Picoult fan.
oh, we love Jodi Picoult. So
Yes.
we did My Sister's Keeper in the first season, but
Yes.
my favorite one by her is probably The Storyteller. Have you read that one?
I'm looking at my shelf over there. I don't think I've read that one.
So it's a World War II, like one of the stories takes place during the Holocaust and one of the stories takes place in the present, and the stories weave together, and it's just Jodi Picoult at her finest, and I love it. I also really liked 19 Minutes, which is about
Oh, 19
oh,
minutes.
that was hard for
I
me because before I became a librarian, I was a teacher, so a school shooting like that really,
mhm.
that's triggering for me. School shootings are happening so frequently, and when you have kids in school and when you're a teacher, like that's tough.
19 minutes is one of my all-time favorites. And I read whatever the most recent one that made her, I like cannot remember
All little things or all tiny things or something like that. Is that it?
the next
Oh,
one.
the one after that. Okay, I'm not sure what that one.
Yes, that one was amazing too. I loved it.
Mhm.
Every time I put down one of her books, I'm like, I can't read another book.
I know.
There won't be one as
Mhm,
good as this.
mhm.
We just did Burnout here at Sodoma Law.
Okay.
We're doing some mental health awareness, and we did Burnout. Um, Brene Brown and the sisters who wrote Burnout
Mhm,
do a beautiful job on their podcast. They did a
mhm,
podcast together once based on their book, but I actually loved the podcast and how succinct they were
mhm.
in getting their message across.
Yeah.
Um, I For people who are going through divorce, Bill Eddy is a lawyer and a therapist, and he has written some very easy to read books on high
Mhm.
conflict divorces. I hand his book out like they're candy at my office because I think the more you know on high conflict and
Right.
it just makes you better in the process. I was, like I said, like that Glennon Doyle book, Untamed.
Mhm.
You've read that,
I
listened to
I
it.
have not. I have not. But I will definitely put it on my list.
I
I'm always looking
stood
for books.
in a tree pose with a glass of wine and her in my ears
Mm,
for about 4 days with a notebook taking notes. And when it was over, I felt relief. Uh, she has a line in there, and I don't know if it's hers, but she talks about families. And I think it's about relationships that you get to this point where you feel held and free.
mhm,
That in a real love relationship where there's this mutual exchange of energy. And so I her idea of held and free
mhm.
in family, I take forward into relationships. And actually it was part of my vows
Mhm. I
when I
love
got
that.
remarried.
I love that.
Yeah, feeling held and free.
Yeah,
Isn't that
I
just
love that.
like, yeah,
Awesome.
I do too.
My
So,
favorite book ever is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, which
oh,
of course
yes,
features an amazing attorney, Atticus Finch. I mean,
the one and only.
fictional, but yeah, that is my favorite book. I've read it. I've lost count. It could be close to 100 times now. I used to teach
Oh,
it, and um, my first teaching job was in the middle of the West Tampa projects, and my students were predominantly African American, and seeing them read that book and engage with the text and get angry at the conviction, the wrongful conviction of a black man during this time period. It created amazing discussions with us, and it felt really great to have these kids feel something about a book. um, so, and I've never stopped loving it. I read it for the first time when I was in high school, and I own special editions on my wall over
oh,
here.
I love
So
that.
yeah,
So are you prepared to, when your kids read it, are you gonna like hold back?
I'm gonna try really hard, but I've owned several copies that I've annotated so frequently that they've just fallen apart. So I don't know. My husband still actually hasn't read it. He says that we had an agreement that I would read his favorite book, and I was reading the Twilight series, so he read the Twilight series, and so I read his favorite book, and he read Twilight series, so he shouldn't have to read To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm like,
I think you tell him he is not allowed to read Kill a Mockingbird. It is now off limits. It is now your own love, and you do not want to share it with anyone else.
it's
It is
mine.
only those who want to read it should read it.
I 100%, because you have to be in the mindset
Yes.
to really receive that book.
Yes. Yes.
So what time is your session for the Annapolis Book Festival? It's 4.
I know I should know that. I don't remember.
Well, it's definitely, we'll link the schedule below, but I know it's later in the afternoon, like 3, I think, or 3:30, something like that.
Come visit me, because I've never been to this book festival.
Cool. We'll come meet you.
Yes, I would love that. We'll hang out, because this is going to be a first for me too.
This is our first time doing any sort of book festival, so we're really excited to be part of it, especially it being at the Key School. I'm a librarian. I used to be a teacher, so I love that, and I'm just really amazed at the quality of authors that they're going to have. So I'm really excited to be there and excited to meet you in person. That would be great.
Thanks, you too, and I'm so excited to meet these other authors too.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I need to cram all their books in before I get there, so that
yeah, I've been cramming in a lot of books lately. Because I was also preparing for Battle of the Books. I'm in charge of that for the library where I work. I read like something like close to 30 books in like 3 weeks. I never read that fast, but it was just a lot at once because I was doing all the things. Some of them were children's books, so they were shorter, but still.
Thanks, because I'm feeling like there's no way I could get 30 in. I mean,
I don't know how I did it. I actually ended up taking a break in reading one of Olivia Dade's books, which is just like smutty loveliness, because I was just like, I need a smut break. That's what I call it when I need to detox. I need a smut break.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
Well,
I need to not think for a little bit.
Yes.
I need to give my brain a little bit of a break.
Yes, 100%. That is me. I need to decompress, read some smut. It's all good.
All right. Well, when you read, please don't say you're sorry. Know that I made the margins wider for you to take notes in.
Oh, good to know. Good to know.
And to ask yourself questions. And when you get that far, you feel free to let me know, and we'll talk about all the stuff.
Yeah,
all the smut I see on a daily basis, or that have a
different kind of smut.
Yes, I mean, there's not a lot that surprises me. So whatever your smut is, I'll match it.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today to meet with me. And I'm so excited to see you at the Annapolis Book Festival. The Annapolis Book Festival, again, is on April 29th, and it is at the Key School in Annapolis. And we've had a link on our website and on our social media, and we'll link it again below. And you can see Nicole Sodoma there to talk about her book, Please Don't Say You're Sorry, and many other authors. So is there any last words, parting words from you?
You are amazing, April. Thank you for all you do. Thanks for having me on. It was so great getting to know you.
Thank you. Great to know you too. All right. Until next time, besties, get lost in your favorite book. Bye.